Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Custom Carving and Epoxy UK. I hope you're doing well. So if you've been following the channel, you may have noticed that I think we finally mastered this 3D bloom effect. So that's my favorite one so far. Absolutely gorgeous. So if you haven't watched the last video, go back and watch that. I think it's one of my favorite resin pieces that I've done to date actually, so loving that. I've also done this Halloween inspired bloom as well, which I think came out really well. So it got me to thinking, I've mastered it in coasters, but now I want to see if I can do it potentially on a smaller scale in these pendants. So I don't know if I can, first of all, because I've never tried it. I don't know if the temperatures will still be the same with the resin or anything like that because of the smaller surface area. And what I thought I'd try in the center is just yellow again, but with a drop of the CD per white sinker to just see if that can create that Petri effect just in the middle, to create those sort of little stamens that you normally get in the middle of a flower. So all I've done so far is I've mixed up 3 ounces of resin. I'm using the Let's Resin 1:1 resin, which is what I use for my coasters. Put it in my bubble removal machine. If you've not got one of those, go back and watch the last video where I did a review on the Resiners Pro. And if you want a discount code for that, it's ccukresin and you'll get 15% off. And you get this crystal clear resin. I mean, it is like water. It is that clear. Now with the coasters, when I've had the most success, it's been at 40 degrees. Now at the minute on the surface of this, it's 35, but on the base, it's only 29.4. So it shows you the difference between two. It's about 5 degrees, and that's only on 3 ounces. And I think that's where I was going wrong before. I was trusting this laser thermometer and taking the surface temperature at like 33 degrees, but then the base was 5 degrees cooler, so the bloom didn't work initially. But I thought, to be fun, I've got all of these different blue effect inks. So you get, I think there's about 7 different colors of blue and purple in the Let's Resin 26 ink pack. And I've got the iridescent blue powder, which worked really well when I mixed it with the white bloom last time. So I'm going to try that, but I'm going to try it in these pendants. And I'm going to try putting 1 drop of yellow in the middle with a drop of the white sinker, just to see if that does create a tiny little bit of that Petri effect. Don't know if it's going to work, to be honest. It's my first time doing it, but that's what this is all about. It's about experimenting and seeing what happens, you know, and what results we can get. And we get some crazy results sometimes, and sometimes we get projects that don't work. So if you like the sound of that and it's your first time to the channel, please do me a favor, like and subscribe. Just push that button there and subscribe to the channel. It makes a huge difference, and it allows me to keep creating content like this. The more the channel grows, the more we can do, hopefully, as a community, and the more of these videos I can send your way. So with the white, I'm just going to mix up probably about half a pot, I think, because I'm only going to get, I think, out of 3 ounces, maybe 10 pendants, and hopefully we'll get at least 8 work out, but we'll see. So I'm going to mix up about half of one of these with a drop, probably 1 drop of the white bloom and some of the iridescent powder, and then we're going to pour the resin out once it gets to 40 degrees across probably the larger pendants, if I'm being honest, to see if we can create that 3D bloom effect in a pendant. I don't know if I can, but let's see. And whilst we're on it, does anybody else have problem when they reuse gloves? Every time I try and reuse them, they split. So maybe I just need a larger size, I don't know. But it is frustrating. Every time I try and reuse gloves, they just split. So as you can see, 35.6, so we're almost there now. And the key is with blooms, once you're at that temperature, it's about being ready to go, because every minute after that, you're not going to get the same effect. So the way that blooms work is the resin sort of, when you put your inks in, when you put the white bloom in, it sort of contracts in, and that's what creates that bloom effect. But you have to have it at the right temperature. And depending on your surroundings, I mean, at the minute, I've just checked my thermostat and it's only 19, 20 degrees in my house at the minute. So I think that effect is going to happen quite quickly. So what I'm probably going to try is mixing up my white, and then doing half at a time so that the resin in the cup in the bigger container can still maintain that heat. I don't know if it's going to work. As I say, that's what this is all about. So if that's what you like, you're in the right place. And for the next video, I'm going to try coating a piece that I did 2 years ago. So if you're familiar with the channel, I also do wood carving, a bit of wood burning as well. And I've had this sign in my bathroom for about 2 years because I loved the patina on the wood, and I just thought it was comical to burn in Get Naked. But I want to see on the back, I mean, it did originally get a varnish, but I think most of that has worn off with it being in a bathroom for 2 years. So I want to see what this will look like if I coat it with UV resin. So that'll be the next video, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, if there's anything you guys want us to try, any experiments you've been thinking about that you haven't tried yourself and you want us to try them first just to make sure they work, let us know in comments, and hopefully we'll be glad to do that for you. So again, I'm at 35.6 at the moment, so almost there. I'm not going to do it until it gets 40 degrees because every time I have, it's not worked. So I want this to work. And again, you'll see all of these. I'm going to be turning all of these teddies that we've done recently into keychains, putting them on the website on Etsy. So if anybody likes these teddies and wants one as a keychain, they're going to be on there. And the first 10 customers are going to get a freebie thrown in as well. So the shop on Etsy is Carvings and Epoxy UK. So have a look on there. If there's anything you like, there will be a freebie thrown in for the first 10 customers because I'm trying to get people on there as well. I don't know, how do you find that resin sells at the minute? Because I'm making some absolutely stunning pieces and pendants and things like that, and they're just not selling. So again, if you've got any suggestions on that, where to sell resin products when they're done, let me know. And I'm really excited with the last video as well. So it was the first time I tried this dragon mold and got some really cool effects painting on the different chameleon powders. And I hope you'll agree, he is absolutely stunning, the detail in him. So again, if you want to see how I made him, go back, watch that video, and it will show you how we painted the different chameleon powders on there to come out with that multicolored textured effect. But really, really love that guy at the minute. And I tend to find it takes probably about a minute or two for every degree centigrade to go up in temperature. But as I say, every time I've tried it at because I watched a few bloom videos, and every one I watched tended to start at like 33 to 35 degrees. And every time I did that, the bloom didn't work properly or it blobbed. Since I changed it to 40 degrees on the surface, at least, they've worked, touch wood. So hopefully this is going to work. And hopefully we can get some mini 3D blooms in these pendants. Then I can add a pinch bell to them and people can wear them because obviously we're approaching winter and I think people will want a reminder that spring is on its way. So we will see if it works. But we're just approaching 6,600 subscribers as well, so massive shout out and thank you to everybody that supported the channel for so far and everybody that has subscribed. I really want to get us to 10,000. I think that will get the channel to the next level. So if you guys can do me a favor, if it's your first time to the channel, tap that button, click subscribe, and it makes such a difference. And you know what, put a comment in if you're liking the content, if you're not liking the content, you know, it all helps with the algorithm, or just give it a thumbs up. It makes a huge difference. So we're at 37 degrees at the minute. I think I've got everything ready. So I've got my little stick that I'm going to be putting in the bloom design with, just this little silicone stick. I've got some spare molds in case I've got some spare resin. I've got a separate pot. I've got all of my alcohol inks laid out as well. And I've got my ocean white from Let's Resin as well. So, and these go a really long way because you don't need a lot. And I was surprised that this came with the 1-to-1 resin kit that I got. And just on that, the kit that I got came with pumps and I thought they'd be terrible, the same as the Jan Chun ones that I've had before. But with it being a medium viscosity resin, they work really well, so I would recommend them. And again, with this, being 3 ounces, it was roughly 4 full pumps of each, and it was an easy way for me to work out the amount of resin that I needed. And again, always have spare moulds next to you for if you've got any spare white or anything like that, because you never know what effects you're going to get. This little seahorse was a spare piece, so all I did with that is threw some alcohol ink directly into the mould, and then used my spare white, and that has come out so good. I'm going to be doing a larger project with some of these seahorses over the next few weeks, so stay tuned for that. And it's going to be a bit of a seascape, but I absolutely love the detail you get on this little, and I think it's meant to be a fondant mould, but it works really well with the epoxy resin. I couldn't do it with UV resin because I don't think it'd cure, but with the 2-part it seems to work really well. So it's 37.6 on the top, but if you look, it's only 29.8 on the base. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They presume once it gets to 33 degrees on the top, the whole resin is 33 degrees, and it's not. So there's normally that temperature difference between the surface and the base. So that's why I'm always trying to do it at sort of 40 degrees. Before we sort of go on with this project, the only reason I'm using the purples and blues is the only iridescent powder I have at the minute is blue. And what I've found when I've used blue iridescent powder with other colours, it looks a bit weird. So I'm just going to go with the blues, maybe a turquoise as well, maybe the cerulean in some of these pendants with the blue iridescent powder. I need to find a place to get lots of different colours of iridescent powders so that I can do different coloured blooms with those iridescent powders, because I love the shimmer you get by adding them to the white bloom paste that you make. But at the minute, I don't think you get the same effect with mica because it's heavier and the iridescent powders are light, so it doesn't have any impact on your piece actually blooming. So if anybody knows where to get lots of different colours of these iridescent powders, let me know in comments. The one I've got is just a blue one from Temu. And it does create a really good effect, but as I say, only really with blues and purples. So you've got to think about your colour combinations when you do this, because otherwise it just looks a little bit weird if you've got like blue sparkles on a red blue. 38.4, so it's almost there. And that's one of the most frustrating parts for me about whenever I do blooms, it's the weight. So it's probably taken, I don't know, 25 minutes to get up to this point, and we're nearly there now, so I think it'll only be another minute. But when you're impatient, and if I'm being honest, I am slightly impatient, that's one of the most frustrating things. It's just waiting so that you're ready to go, and then you've got to get everything ready so that at that point you're just ready to go. And on that note, actually, I haven't sprayed my mold, so I'm just going to spray that with my silicone release spray. Always make sure when you work with resin as well, you wear a respirator and you wear gloves, because you don't want anything getting in your lungs. So I'm just going to spray the ones that I think I'm going to be likely to use. I don't think I'm going to be going with any of the larger ones, the smaller ones. It's just going to be these bigger ones. So that's the silicone release spray that I use. I put a link to it in the description where you can get it in the UK. I haven't found the same brand in the US yet, but I have found a similar product, so hopefully that will still work. So I'll put a link to that in the description as well. Oh, so close, 39.1, so another 30 seconds and I think we will be ready to go. With your alcohol inks as well, whenever you're using them, give them a good shake, because otherwise all of the pigments will just settle on the bottom and you won't get the right colour. So I'm just giving out all of those a shake, ready, and then when I'm ready to pour, we should be ready to go. And just remember, if ever you try the bloom effect, it will always depend on what temperature your surroundings are, and also what resin you use. Every resin I've used has had a slightly different temperature at which it blooms, and I think it's dependent on the viscosity. So we're pretty much there now, we're at 40 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pour out enough for my white, and I'm going to go with probably about 3/4 of a cup of this, and if I've got any spare I can always use that in the spare molds that I've got. Just going to give that a wipe so I don't get it dripping anywhere. And I'm leaving the rest in the cup so that can continue to hopefully stay warm as I do this. And I'm just going to put some iridescent powder in it now. And you don't need a lot. A little goes a long way. And I'm just going to... I've got one of these scoops and I don't want it to go all over a mold either. I'm probably going to be using about half a spoon, and that is it. And that should be enough, I think, just to give us that shimmering effect in the bloom itself. And then I'm going to use 1 drop of this Ocean White from Let's Resin. A decent sized drop, but just the one I think will do, and it should give us an almost opaque effect. And I'm going to start storing this upside down actually, because it's so thick it takes a while to actually get through. There we go, it's coming now, and that is just 1 stringy drop. And I think that should be enough, so I'm just going to mix this up. And you can already see that shimmer from the iridescent blue powder, which is absolutely stunning, and I love the effect I got in blooms using it, so hopefully we'll get the same impact. And just give it a good mix, making sure it's thoroughly mixed. And you want it so that you can still just about see the stick, which I can there, so it's not fully opaque, there's still an element of transparency. And then what I've done is I've cut down one of these piping bags, put it in a cup, and I'm just going to pour all of it in there ready to pipe. And I want to get it all out. And then we should be ready to go with the main action. So let's see if it works. I'm really intrigued as to if I can get these blooms in a pendant or not. So as you can see, that's just gone into a piping bag. All I'm going to do is squeeze it down, give it a bit of a twist, and then that should be ready to go once I'm ready. And it does feel warm, so I think we've got the temperature about right, and I'm just going to snip the smallest amount for this. So that is now ready to go, and now I'm going to pour the rest of this, and you'll see the temperature is probably still rising, which it is. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I've got my Sinker White and I've got my yellow prepared, and I want to do in the center of each just 1 drop of that to try and give us that bloom effect, the center of a flower. So I'm going to go with the larger ones first in this mold, and it doesn't have to fully fill it, so I'm probably going to go about halfway in case I decide to add a backing on this, which I probably will. Not decided yet. I think it will largely depend on how the blooms turn out. I'm going to do 4 at a time, I think, and then see what we're left with resin wise. In fact, no, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to be quick. Change my mind last minute. And what you want to make sure if you're using a mold like this as well is that the resin goes all the way around that silicone bit at the top. Otherwise you're going to have problems when you come to demold and you'll get a hole in your piece. So even if you slightly go over it, it doesn't matter. And I think I might have enough resin for just 1 more. So I'm going to go with this triangle actually. Be interesting to see how the bloom works in a triangle, or if we get a bloom effect with any of them for that matter. And then I've got the tiniest little bit left, but I don't think it's enough for another piece. So I'm just going to go with these. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 3 ounces of resin there. So what I'm going to do first is just try and get rid of any bubbles that are in there. Because when you pour, you're going to get bubbles. Unfortunately, it's just part of working with resin, even though, as you saw, this was crystal clear when it came out. And I always like to just go around the edges because that's where the bubbles try to build up, and also that makes sure that you get it all the way around that silicone stick at the top, which creates your hole. Again, not going to try and disturb it too much, but you want any bubbles that are still in there to come up to the surface and not stick around your edge, which they will do if you don't do this part. I can see in this one there's a few, and you can see the resin has really thickened up already, and that is because it is at that temperature. So just quickly going around the edges, trying to get rid of any bubbles, and then we'll go in with the inks. And I'm not bothered about a few little tiny ones that won't be noticed, but I want to get the majority out. So once I've done that, just going to go over the top of them with my lighter. And that should get rid of any of those bubbles that are on the surface. And hopefully remind me which ones I've actually done as well. And then we're going to go in with it. And don't forget, when you put your alcohol inks on it as well, they will actually burst a lot of those bubbles. So there's just a couple of big ones in there that I'm not happy about. And in this one. So you've got to bring them up to the surface, otherwise they won't pop. And the reason you've got those bubbles in there now is just because of the way you poured and the way you got them out of those edges. So you're always going to have to do this, I'm afraid. And hopefully that should get those last few. Then we can start with the alcohol. Right, I'm going to go with it now because I think we're running out of time. So, just going to go in with the yellow. And I want this kind of in the center for each one. One drop, one drop, one drop, one drop, and that's kind of off center. And that one's now got 2 drops, so I'm going to have to do something with that design. And as you can see, the problem is your alcohol inks take up so much room in these small pendants. So I'm not sure whether this is going to work or not, but this is just your standard white sinker. And I'm going to go again, 1 drop in the middle, trying to get it as a drop. And I don't know if this is going to work, but even if not, hopefully we'll still get a cool effect. I don't know why I seem to be off center with that one, but there we go. So that is just the yellow and the white sinker. Now I'm going to go around with my colors. So the first one, I'm going to go with blue. And that should push, hopefully, the rest back in a little bit. Next one of my favorite colors at the minute is cerulean. So I'm going to save that and try and do 2 different colors actually in this big one. So I'm going to do 2 cerulean. And I'm going to do 2 dark indigo. And I can probably fit a little bit more in that one. Just looking at the way it spreads. So I'm going to go for another drop of cerulean just because I prefer that. And that should hopefully push everything back into the center, which is where I want it. I've got some turquoise here, so I'm going to use that in the triangle, I think. And see what colors that comes out with. I've got a sapphire blue here, which is a really, again, nice blue, and I didn't want it to splash in the center like it's just done. Midnight blue, which is quite a dark one actually, but hopefully it won't be as dark with that yellow center. I'm actually wanting these inks to push that yellow in a little, and it doesn't seem to, so I might have to come up with a different way of doing it for the next one. But we'll see what effect we get. Purple. The good thing is by using yellow first, it's always a pretty safe colour. Right, so this next one, I'm going to try and put a few different ones. Cerulean. purple, sapphire blue, turquoise, and then for the last one, just the normal blue. I don't think I've actually done a normal blue one yet, so I'll do that in a second. Again, really nice colours. I love these Let's Resin alcohol inks. You get a lot of colour with them. So, I think it's as close as I can get. And what I might do actually whilst I've got this out is just cover up any gaps, because I don't want any gaps for this. I don't want any translucency if I can get away with it. Now I'm just going to leave those to settle for a second, because you want your inks to be fully settled before you do your bloom. But again, I'm also conscious that time is not on my side at the minute. There we go, I'm happy with those. Maybe one more drop of cerulean just in there and one in there. And we'll see what happens. I think that's enough alcohol in. Now for the piping. So again, I'm just going to go with the standard circular design, cutting off a small bit, doing a circle and trying to create that bloom pattern. So literally tiniest bit I'm going to snip off. And that is now hopefully going to come out, which it is. And then just going to start in a circular design, hopefully. And I don't want it to blob, which unfortunately this is looking a little bit thicker than normal, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, I might have left this white a little bit too long. But again, you don't know unless you experiment. So that's that one. Same with this one. I'm going to go with the circular pattern and hopefully not get too much of a blob. And this one as well. I'm going to start a little bit further out with this one. And what you're trying to do is get it as even as you can, which is very difficult, I know. And ideally, you don't want to be touching your sides. And I didn't want that to happen either. But again, we'll see what happens when they come out the other side. Again, this triangle is really difficult actually. But if we get one or two good blooms, I'll be very happy. First attempt at doing it in these pendants. And I'm hoping we get that bloom effect. Again, that stick doesn't help. I'm going to go a bit further out with this one, try and keep that yellow centre, and hopefully with that sinker white it'll create some sort of effect, but not sure if it will. That's going to blob unless I fix that. And again with this one, exactly the same, going to go a bit further out when I'm starting and see what happens. And there we go. That is essentially, I think, what is going to create the bloom. Now I have got quite a bit of white left, so do I risk going over it with another layer? I'm going to try actually, and just try and get around these edges where I've missed it. In fact, this is really thickening up actually, so no, I'm not going to with the rest. What I'm going to do though is, because I've got that spare, I'm going to keep that to one side, and then I'm going to pour that in these excess molds. But because we're so thick already, I just want to get these blooms drawn in. So just going to use my little stick. I'm going to start with this one, bring it in at 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, even though I did that in the wrong order. And then I'm going to come in again on each one, and that kind of looks like a bloom. And you can go back out with the petals, but I'm not going to do that straight away until I've decided if that's what I want to do. And if you can see any heavy bits like this, just try and loosen it a little bit so that you can try and prevent that blobbing, because that's the risk here, is it blobbing, which you don't want, because that will spoil any effects that you've got. And I'm trying to do the same design for all of them. I just hope, as I say, we get some sort of bloom effect. And always try and work in opposite corners as well, because that's the way that the resin naturally will move. And then in a minute, once I've done all of them, I'm going to decide if I do want to go out with some of them as well. But let me know in comments, do you think this is going to work? Or do you think we're going to end up with blobby messes of pendants? I don't know at the minute. With them being so small as well, it's difficult to tell if that blooming is going to happen or not. Personally, I think we might get an effect in the larger ones, but not in the smaller ones. But we will see. And as you can see, that resin is really thickening up now. That's why once you've poured, you've got to be quick. And any potential blobbing that you see, try and stop it now whilst you can, because shortly you won't be able to, and it will just sink to the bottom. Next time as well, I might use a toothpick rather than this silicone tool. I just find it's a little bit easier to pull through the resin. This is the one that I'm really hoping works out, because I absolutely love the colours already. Now you can go in with a swirl. I don't think I'm gonna. I think it's they're that small. I don't think it'll be that noticeable, and actually there's a risk that you might swirl out any potential Petri effect you've got from putting that white sinker in. But personally here, I think what's going to happen is, I think the bigger ones might work, but not the smaller ones. Now what I'm going to do with some of them, so I think these two for me look the best, so I am going to go out about halfway and drag these petals out. On some. I think this one I'm going to go with all of them. It doesn't matter if you touch your mould at this point because it'll all settle. Just trying to follow the natural flow of these petals or blooms. So that's that one, that one. I'm going to leave that one because that looks really cool on its own. Maybe this one I'm going to try and just pull out some petals. And see if we can get that bloom. Personally, I don't know. I'm 50-50 at this point, whether it's going to work at all. And I think maybe this one I'm going to try it with as well. And at least, if nothing else, hopefully we get a nice pattern. But I'm not sure if any of these are going to work. I think that's it. I'm not going to risk these others. I just want to leave those round and see what happens. And then what I might do in about an hour's time is come back and back these with just some black alcohol ink, because I think that will really make them pop if we have got any successes. So this is where we are at the moment with these. Will they work or won't they work? That is the question. And we'll find out tomorrow. That's the downside to working with UV, I think, with epoxy resin. You've always got to wait 24 hours. But before we go, just to show you what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill these just with a few dots of different colours of alcohol ink. I'm only going to use the colours that I've got out. I might actually put a bit of this mica powder in as well, just because I've got it out, and see what effect that has. But again, I don't want to disturb the blooms, so I'm sorry this is going to be slightly out of shot. Let's put a bit of mica in this teddy. Not too much, just a little bit. And see what happens. And then I'm going to put a little bit in one of these big seahorses as well. This is the problem when you've got such a tiny workspace. Anybody else struggle with that? And obviously I've had to move the whole workspace indoors as well, which is a bit of a pain, but it's getting cold here in the UK, so I think I had to do that. Now I don't know how much resin I've got left actually, so I'm just going to stick with those two for now. And then I've got some alcohol inks out, so I'm just going to dab a few drops of different colours straight into the mould, because I really like the effect that that's had on previous ones. And then we'll see what these come out like as well. Give us something else to demould. Not going overboard, just a few drops. And I want to go with this lighter yellow as well, just to give it a bit of brightness as well, I think. And always use your spare resin, you know. You never know what effect you're going to get until you do it. So I've got quite a bit of this white left, so I'm going to just pipe that into, I'm going to go with the seahorse first, because these are an absolute pain unless you fill them. Got to be really careful around the nose. As you can see, this is really getting thick now. And this tail. As long as they're okay, the rest of it tends to work out pretty well. Really struggling to get this out now. I might actually have to cut the bag again. But again, it's there, so I'm going to use it. And I've got a tiny bit of clear left as well, if I need it. Which I don't think I will actually. I think I should have enough here to do both of these molds. It's just getting the resin out. And I've got to be careful not to disturb any of the blooms that I've started as well. Just imagine that, me knocking some of this white bloom all over them. I want to make sure that every part of these molds gets at least a little bit of that white bloom. And then if needs be, as I say, I can top it up with the clear, but I think I should just have enough here. Time will tell. Right, that's the teddy, I think. And now back to the seahorse. I want to get every last bit out of this. And then, as I say, I know I've got a tiny bit of the clear left, which should just about fill them up. And that is virtually setting. So it's going to be tricky. Come on. But if you know me, you know I don't like to waste resin. And it'd be interesting to see if this gives it a slightly different effect as well, with it being so almost cured. I know this seahorse needs a tiny bit as well, and I really don't want to have to mix up any more just to fill these spare bits. So it's if I can get this off. There we go. And I think that should fill that nicely. And just looking at the teddy mold, I really could do with this tiny bit going in the leg. You can always trim them up when they're done, when they're cured. I don't want to waste any potential resin that I've got, because resin isn't cheap. And this is the last scrapings I can get out. But hopefully it should give me enough. How often do you do this? Completely have to scrape everything just to get that final drop. There we go. And I think he should be okay. Again, if I can get one more drop out, I will. Just in this head bit with the ears. Because I don't want it to be uneven. And what I'm going to do this time with these is I'm actually going to swirl the white around a little bit while we're at this point where it's so thick. Two reasons for that. One, I want to see if it's going to create a different design. But two, I want to spread out the resin so I know it's even as well before it fully cures. Give me the best chance of hopefully still getting a cool little piece. So that's the teddy. And I'm loving the seahorse already. I just think the colours look so cool. So we will see. I'm just spreading it around this tail because that's the bit that's most likely to snap. I'm just going to go a bit of a design, a bit more into this nose as well, because that's also the most fragile bit on them. But there we go. We will see what happens. That's everything I can do now. I've just got to hope that the bloom works. And at the minute, on this side, it's not looking particularly promising, but we will find out in 24 hours. So I'll see you at the demold. Good morning, and we're back ready for the demold. Now, those of you that are observant will notice these backs look a little bit different. And the reason why is, I'll be honest with you, I went a little bit crazy when I was looking at, am I going to back these or not? And I used an alcohol ink, a new cheap black alcohol ink, to just back these for. Now, again, it was two-part epoxy, so I didn't think there'd be any problems. But then it got to the point where the rest of these all cured up nicely, and these were still a liquid mess. And the only thing I can put it down to is that new alcohol ink. So what I did, I ended up scooping out the ink and then putting a coating of, I thought I'd try this nail powder, this blue iridescent nail powder, and because there was still a drop of the black ink left, it created a really cool effect. So I'm actually quite glad about it. It's almost a happy mistake, and if you look at that, it's almost like a planet. So it's quite a cool effect, and don't get me wrong, I think next time if I do these again, and I am going to back them, I'm just going to mix up some more resin instead of being lazy and trying to do it with alcohol ink. But actually, that's a nice happy mistake. And again, you can just see there where it just wouldn't cure, and that was when I put an extra layer of UV resin on it as well. So I don't know if it's something to do with that ink or not, but there we go. But no, time for the demold. I'm excited for it. Hopefully we'll get some really nice little blooms in these pendants. And don't forget, if it's your first time to the channel as well, make sure you like and subscribe just there. It's free for you, but it makes a huge difference. So I'm going to start off, as always, with this spare one that we did with the teddy bear. And again, really cool. Almost that marbly effect I've got with him. So he will be added to the rest of the collection of teddy bear key rings that I'm vastly building. But no, really like him. I think it looks great. And next with the seahorse, and again, whenever you demold these, always do this tail first, because that's the most dangerous part, and it's the most likely to snap. That and this little nose here. So hopefully this guy's worked out as well. Wow, again, absolutely love that. And I've got a bigger project that I'm going to be hopefully using these seahorses in over the next few days or week or so. And to me, they just look so natural using this effect, because I've kept seahorses in the past and these just look realistic to me. So absolutely love that. And as I say, I'm going to be putting these in a bigger project hopefully over the next few days, so stay tuned for that. And right, let's go with these pendants. I'll go with this one first because of the blobby mess it seems to have caused. Okay, right, that hasn't bloomed. The white has just stayed exactly where we put it, and because of the backing that I put on, yeah, I'm not too keen on that one, if I'm being completely honest. I think that one for me is a bit of a failure. And these three, I don't know what they're going to look like after, as I say, look at the state of my mould, and that was just from having to clean out that excess resin. So again, that's not a bloom, but that is very strange. And actually I quite like it, you know. It's not a bloom, but it's with... yeah, and I suppose these ones, now I've put that UV on, it's almost domed, so you could wear them both ways round once I get that onto a pinch bail, and almost get two pendants for the price of one. But I actually like that. I don't know what I'd call it, but it looks pretty cool. So I'd say that one maybe 50-50. It's not a bloom, so it's not what I wanted, but I don't think any of these ones that I originally did the black backing with. Again, that's not a bloom, but it is just such a bizarre effect. I actually really like it. And again, these ones, because of that slight doming, I haven't done a perfect dome there, so I need to fill in a bit more UV resin there. But that to me is almost like a planet or a moon, that effect. So I do like it. And even that side, even though it's not the look that I was going for. So will any of them have bloomed? Probably not. Again, that's kind of a weird design on the front, but I don't mind it. I do like that. And then you've got a bit of a sparkle coming through. I don't know if that's coming through on the camera. But yeah, I kind of like that. It's like something's gone in there and messed everything up. And then on this side again, it's got that sort of planet effect. So that's that one. In fact, let me see if I can get some better light to increase the sparkle, if we get it. Because I can see it here, but I can't really see it on the camera. There we go. So that's a bit more light. So hopefully you can see that sparkle now that we've got from that iridescent nail powder. And as I say, these ones I would class as a happy mistake, really. Which you often get in resin, so that's why it's always worth persisting. No matter what goes wrong, wait till you demold and wait till you see the piece. So that is those. Where are we going to go next? Let's go for this one. And again, I wouldn't say that that is a perfect bloom, because it doesn't look like that white has really sort of pulled in much, but it's pretty. I think somebody would potentially like that and see the similarity to a flower, but not really bloomed. And I don't know why it hasn't, to be honest. Maybe there wasn't enough white in there, or maybe the temperatures were slightly off. I'm not sure. Wow. Now that, I would say, has really worked. And with this one, with the backing, what I actually did is I put, it was a peach red down as a back, and then I added white sinker on top of it. And I think that's what's created this really cool effect in the background. But that, to me, although it's not a perfect bloom, it looks like an orchid. So I think that one, I would say, is a success. Happy with that. Wow. Again, that one I used, I think it was purple on the backing. But again, it's not a perfect bloom, but I don't mind that. That to me looks like a bloom. You've got that sparkle coming through. And this almost looks like the stamen in the center of a flower. So I'd say that one as well. It's quite a big one as well. I would say that is a success. Even though we haven't got that full blooming, we've got those petals, we've got that pattern, we've got that sparkle. I would say that that one as well is a success. So there's two. Oh wow, this one is my favorite. Look at that. Now that one, it did almost pull in a little bit, so we did kind of get that bloom effect. And I backed this with, I think it was an orange, looking at that. And actually that really enhances that blue with the sparkle. So I would definitely say that it's between those two for me, for my favourites. So I suppose we've had 2 successes, 5 not so good, and 1 medium. But yeah, really happy with those 2, and it was worth doing it just for those 2. But remember that whenever you're buying a piece of resin like this and you're looking at the design, if somebody's got something as intricate as this, they've probably got 3/4 of their pieces that haven't worked out like this. So that's what you're paying for, is the fact that hopefully they'll get 1 or 2 amazing pieces like this, and that's what you pay for. So again, check out the shop. These will be listed probably in about 4 weeks time, because I like to make sure that the resin is fully hardened. But absolutely love those. The shop on Etsy is, if you want to have a look. And more than that, if you've liked the content, like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.